Let's welcome him first to a more relaxed setting today. John Mercury Morgan from Rochester, New York. And John, that's where it all began, right there in the heart of the city. When you were just nine years old, you hit that motorbike, that mountain bike for the first time.
Well, we moved from Lake Placid, New York, when I was 8 years old. And the neighborhood that we moved into had a little alley behind our house. And so what's a laddie to do? And it was during that time that one of the most famous stuntmen of all time, really, was one of the most popular sports figures of that day, you know, Evel Knievel. And I began to emulate him and want to be just like him. I didn't really have a father figure in my life at that time, and I didn't really realize it, but he kind of took that role in my life, and that's how I really started to get interested in stunts and in the stunt business.
You picked a dynamic role model, John, and you've done an amazing job of, in a sense, following in his footsteps. But you found another hero on the path.
I sure
did.
And
that's had a dramatic impact on your life.
It's totally changed my life. I'm just not the same person that I used to be. When I was 16 years old, I gave my heart to the Lord Jesus. It's the best decision I ever made, and it has made the most profound impact on my life because it's helped me to overcome some of the tragedies and the triumphs of life, and it's helped me through. And you know, without the Lord in my life, I don't know what I'd have to live for at this point.
Well, let's see what you do. Some of you haven't perhaps seen John in action. We're going to show some highlights of his jumps. Let's watch.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
So, ladies and gentlemen, are you ready? John Mercury Morgan, are you ready? Are you ready? All right, ready, set, go! Straight away towards the ramp.
Now, that was 5 cars, John.
That was only 5.
5. We've been warming up to 7 cars, and I believe tonight?
Yes.
Tonight?
Tonight we're going to be jumping over 7 cars through an 8-foot-high flaming wall.
Ooh. For those who are watching live, if you're anywhere near Burlington, Ontario, come on down.
It'll be a hot stunt.
It's going to be great. Now, we saw you at 14. That was your first televised jump.
It was.
And then with the Ringling Brothers' Greatest Show on Earth over the elephants, you've done some interesting things. Now, the thing I was asking John today, you also, even as a young man, had to come up with the technical arrangement. I mean, you can't just sort of put 2 ramps any old way and take off and land in good health.
Well, especially when I was with the circus, we had engineers building and constructing the ski ramps that would take me down to get up the speed. Nowadays, I use a motorcycle so I can predict my speed a lot more accurately, but the takeoff ramp is set at a 14-degree angle, and we figure on however high we need to jump. And of course, if it's, say, an 8-foot-high ramp, the ramp needs to be a little longer. If it's a 7-foot-high ramp, a little shorter. But I always use the same angle on the takeoff ramp because it's become familiar to me, and I know that I can do that safely.
And there's no shocks in that bike.
Well, there's no shocks, but that's why, you know, I got to work out
my
and see if I can keep myself strong.
Now, fortunately, thankfully, you've never had a serious injury, even in all the trial and error that I'm sure must be a part of this. I mean, the first time you do elephants, you know, you have to try to, but you have missed the ramp.
I have.
Overshot.
No, I've never broken a bone in my life, and I thank the Lord for that. But for instance, once I was performing in Ottawa, the nation's capital, and we were to be there at the Hull International Cycling Festival, and we were to be there for 5 days. And the first day I was to jump 6 cars, and the second day 7 cars. the first day 6 cars, the second day 7 cars, and then on up to the 5th day I was to jump 10 cars. And the day before, the 4th day, we jumped 9 cars and everything was fine. But the 5th day, my motorcycle broke down that tows me up to speed. And so we borrowed a Canadian motorcycle, and I just assumed that it was in kilometers per hour. And so we had to figure out what was the difference, because I had jumped 10 cars the year before, and I knew that it was a 55-mile-per-hour jump. But we had to figure out what was it in kilometers per hour, and myself and the other geniuses that were with me at the time figured that, well, 55 miles an hour is equal to about, well, 65 kilometers per hour. And now I know it's more like just under 90. So we got set up that night, and we always do 2 test runs past the ramp. And my guy said, "You look right on the money." And I said, "Well, I feel great. Light the wall." So I had 10 cars set up. They lit the big 8-foot-high, 8-foot-wide flaming wall doused with several gallons of gas, and they lit it on fire. And I come down at this, what I thought was 65 kilometers per hour, only to find at the last possible moment that that motorcycle was not in kilometers per hour. And I went off an 8-foot-high takeoff ramp like a rocket at 65 miles an hour. And I jumped all 10 cars. And I jumped over the flaming wall.
Over the wall?
And I jumped over the landing ramp. And as I'm coming down from 20 feet in the air, looking at this pavement at 65 miles an hour, I thought...
There's no eject button at that point?
No eject button. And I thought, oh God, am I going to live or am I going to die? Is this the end of my story? Is this the end of my life? And as I slammed into the pavement at 65 miles an hour...
With no shocks?
No shocks. And as I went sliding across the pavement, I used to have a stick of magnesium that I would put on the bike, and it would shoot sparks out behind me for an evening performance, which was what this was. And as I'm sliding across the pavement at 65 miles an hour, the bike gets turned around backwards and starts shooting the sparks in my face. And I was, did you ever have one of those days where nothing just seemed to go your way? But I learned a very important lesson. I learned that there's a verse out of the Bible, and it says that it is by the grace of God that we stand. And I learned that day that it's nothing that you can earn or deserve. The grace of God is unmerited favor. Maybe I should have been killed at that point. And you know, none of us really know when our last day is going to be. I held my grandfather in my arms as he was 91 years old, and he took his last breath in my arms. And
this year, John?
This was last year. But I wasn't sad about that, because I knew and I was persuaded of his position with the Lord Jesus Christ. And at the moment of our departure from this world, and that's going to happen to every one of us, there's only one thing that's important at that moment. And it's not how much money do I have, or how much furniture have I collected, or how much stuff do I have. But at the moment of our departure from this world is what is our position with the Lord Jesus Christ. And so that day I learned that as I fell into the pavement at 65 miles an hour, I learned that the grace of God is there always. You can't do anything so bad that will separate you from the love of God. And you can't do anything to earn it or deserve it. It is God's gift, and it's His gift to us, and there's no way you can buy a gift, because it's a free thing.
John, you articulate your faith so well, and we don't have time to talk about it today, maybe next program, but your faith has been tested even in this year. Some major disappointments. In spite of this article that we want to make a gift to you if you write to us, the Youth Alive magazine. It's called Mercury's Rise to the Top. This man's faith has been tested in some very challenging ways just in this past year. And yet you know in your own heart that in heaven's eyes there are no losers.
There are no losers, that's right.